From the Corner Office is brought to you by Synovus Bank, championing business growth through trusted, relationship-driven banking throughout the Gulf Coast region. Jennifer Grondahl has worked in two opposite sides of business. She's run her own events and marketing company, growing it from scratch. And now she heads up the communications department for a professional sports team, the Baltimore Orioles, who hold spring training in Sarasota. The Business Observer writes about leaders like Jennifer every week in print and online. To read those stories and more, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer's From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Jennifer Grondahl, Senior Vice President Communications for the Baltimore Orioles. Jennifer, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm glad it came to fruition.
Yes, me as well. And for our audience out there, I did say Baltimore. We have not moved this podcast to Baltimore, but Baltimore Orioles have a connection to Sarasota. And for those who don't know, Jennifer, what is that connection that the Orioles have to Sarasota?
Well, we've been very fortunate to have Sarasota as our spring training home for approximately 13 years or so. So I'm currently in Baltimore, but I have an office in Sarasota as well. I go back and forth. I will be getting on a plane in a couple of days and heading back to Sarasota, but it's our second home. And our third home is in the Dominican Republic. So pretty good second home.
Yes, excellent. Well, we're going to get into, I know you've done some work in Sarasota, run your own company in Sarasota and some other work, and we're going to get into that and talk about your leadership experiences. But let's also get our audience to know you a little bit better, the personal side. So we're going to start with, if you had a time machine, would you go back in time or into the future, and why?
I would definitely go back in time. I would love to go back and relive some of my favorite childhood memories. I think one of the times we spoke, Mark, was when I was at 40 Under 40 and my father had just passed away a few days prior. And I would definitely go back to be able to spend a little bit more time with my parents who both are in heaven together now.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to bring up the 40 Under 40 story. I looked at that for research for this podcast. Jen, that was 2014. You were in 40. We don't age, though. Well, you don't age.
I just made it under the wire, too, so I'm giving you an idea.
do the math on that, yes. But that was a fun story to put together. Okay. AI is talked about everywhere. AI, ChatGPT. It's hard to go a day without talking about it. I'm curious, either from the Orioles' perspective or from your own personal life When was the last time you used AI or ChatGPT to help you with something?
I really don't use it. It's funny. I have a thing on my board here that I'll show you. It's called Nate Jr. That's my baseball comms guy, and I told him I was going to replace him with a robot because we have to do the game notes, and so I have this on my board in my office. A lot of people do use it. I have seen documents edited, but I, at this point, am not really using it, but a lot of people around me use it, and I'm imagining that is going to be a big part of our lives moving forward. I'm not resistant to it. I just, at this point, I'm still doing things the traditional way, and so much of what we do is so personal and intricate that I feel like it's right for me to do it with my own eyes and my own words.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you and I are, again, we're of a similar age where we're like, we understand that it's coming and it's here and it's being utilized in our organizations, right? I'm sure there must be an analytics person within the Orioles that's using it a ton.
So many people. And in fact, the reason that it came up in our world, in the comms world, is that we produce game notes, and our game notes, there's been some discussion about going to AI for portions of the game notes. But even my staff, who are actually much younger, are very resistant because they're very committed to quality, and we have to be perfect in our jobs. And they really feel like everything isn't perfect quite yet. So I think we have a little bit of time to, as they tweak the technology, to be able to produce the perfect results we need for game notes.
Yeah, interesting. I agree. There's a lot of danger out there using the wrong thing. All right, last rapid, but not that rapid fire question. I know sometimes you get home late because you're covering, you're at the games, you're at Camden Yards. In general, what's the best meal you cook or prepare?
I am a very good cook. I have to say. It's one of my hobbies. I feel like I can make really good chicken cotoletta. I make all homemade sauces. I'm pretty much make everything from scratch. I have never in my building in Baltimore, I have a condo here. I'm the only person in the building who's never ordered food delivery because I'm that committed to cooking.
I love it. Awesome. All right. Well, you just next time I'm in Baltimore, you just tell me what time to come over and I'm there.
I chose my apartment because it had a great kitchen. A lot of apartments don't, but this one has a great one. So.
All right. Fantastic. Excellent. All right, Jennifer, we're going to move on a little bit, talk about leadership. We're going to start with the Orioles. I'm really interested because the Orioles have gone through an ownership change and a new group of owners, and you work pretty closely with, I'm sure, a lot of those leaders at this high level, professional sports organization. What have you learned? What are some things that you've learned about leadership working with, David Rubenstein and some of these other people at this high level?
Yeah, I think one of the tenets of leadership to me is to have integrity. And I definitely have seen how David approaches all the businesses that he's involved in. He's a man of great integrity. He also, I think, feels that it's important, even with the demands of owning a baseball team or having a financial company or traveling all over the world. He's literally in a different country, it feels like, every day. The importance of giving back. And I think that's about philanthropy, but it's also about being a great example and being available to people as they are developing in their careers. And David is a really wonderful person. He's really fascinating. But as far as leadership, he set the bar really high in sports ownership because he's committed and invested for all the right reasons. And one of the things I love about David is that he's a very successful multi-billionaire now, but he started from nothing. He was the son of a letter carrier, grew up in a row house in Baltimore and not the best neighborhood, and he built everything he has. And I think the other leadership characteristic that he demonstrates is unbelievable hard work. He works so hard, even at this point in his career and success.
Yeah, and the philanthropic side must be really important to you because we're going to get into Sarasota in a second. You've been in the philanthropic world before, so that must resonate with you.
Oh, 100%. He was one of the original signers of the Giving Pledge. So when I learned that he was going to become our owner, that's what really intrigued me about him and his backstory of coming from nothing and hard work. I come from a background where my father was, very, very poor and built everything he had, obviously not to that scale, but I just really respect people who work hard. And even our general manager, Mike Elias, he has a little girl, he has 2 kids, but his little girl is just so smart. And I said to her, Evie, you're so smart. And he said, but tell Jennifer what's more important than being smart. And she said, hard work. And that's kind of the common thread that I think you find in this organization in particular, but I think successful people.
Yeah, so take us, definitely, that's so true. Take us back to you growing up. You mentioned your dad grew up poor. What was your childhood like?
It was not poor. My father worked very hard. He had a goal of giving me everything that he never had. My mother was also a very successful executive. She was a vice president of a large publishing company. She started actually as a receptionist. She went back to work. And really bright, graduated from John Carroll University in 3 years, then decided to go to work once I was older and moved up very quickly. That said, the one thing about my parents is that they did not take it easy on me despite all the goodness around me. I was woken up every day at 5:30 in the morning. I swear I'd be 5'10" if I'd had a chance to grow at night, but they instilled a work ethic in me that it's really actually quite hard to shake. I'm trying to shake it a little bit now at this point in 30-year career. So.
Yeah. So and then you get that work ethic in you, and tell us about some of the organizations. I know you started your own company in Sarasota. Tell us about your sort of career trajectory here.
I had a very unusual career trajectory. And what I often tell people, I work with a lot of students mentoring, and I say, don't feel this pressure to go in a straight line. it's really what's important is picking up experiences and lessons along the way. I've made my fair share of mistakes. I continue to do that, but I use them as teaching moments to grow. I started in Washington, D.C. at a public policy organization. I continued that work in Florida, and then had a friend who was diagnosed with leukemia at a young age, and I saw how he struggled and how his family struggled because they didn't have means. And I completely changed my life at that point. I knew I needed to do something that was more meaningful. So I got into the nonprofit world, in fact, in cancer work in Manatee County. It was my first job in Manatee County. I moved from the East Coast of Florida, where I was living, to be closer to my parents, and got into the nonprofit world. And that was sort of the springboard for me starting my business. And I worked with countless nonprofits between Manatee and Sarasota. And then, of course, companies and individuals, including the Orioles. The Orioles were one of my clients, and that's where the relationship started.
That's where the relationship started. You mentioned, mistakes that you've learned from, when you're talking about, say, just running your own business, what's a mistake that stands out or regret or something that you've used as a lesson with people that you've mentored that you've learned from?
I feel like having more faith in yourself is really important, because one of the things that I did was I was so afraid that I was going to fail, which I also have seen in many leaders. Many leaders share that quality. I was afraid to fail. And so I took on so much work. And every time I was busy, I'm like, but what if another client doesn't come? Or what if I don't get renewed? And I was taking so much work. And then I remember I had an office in downtown Sarasota in the Arts District. And then in the Rosemary District. But I remember sitting at my dining room table at 4:00 in the morning every day, just trying to get caught up. And oh my goodness. And I had a marketing and event planning company, so you can imagine the hours. But I really feel like if I would have had a little bit more faith, that would have helped me, I think, have a bit more work-life balance. And as I mentioned to you, that's kind of something that was ingrained early. And I tell my people it's maybe not the healthiest way to live.
Yeah. It's an interesting analogy to where you work now, right? Because you hear it oftentimes in baseball, just take a famous Baltimore Oriole, Cal Ripken, one of the greatest players of all time, a 300 hitter, but that means he got out 700% of the time, right? So he's in the Hall of Fame, but he also failed. So he had to keep having that confidence to keep going, right?
Yeah, it is amazing because baseball is a sport of failure, statistically. And, the thing about it, going back to Cal Ripken, is that he showed up every day. He had the desire. And I think you have to have passion for what you're doing to want to do that. You can tell when people lose their passion. I've had people leave the organization working for me that they've lost the passion for this. You must have a tremendous passion to work 162 games regular season, 17 at home, spring training, plus all the away games. And then postseason, if you're lucky. So you do the math. We have about 21 off days and 162 days. It's not for the faint of heart. And that includes weekends, by the way.
Yes.
I watch people going to the farmer's market, and I'm like,
It looks so fun, but no.
Exactly.
But no. Well, all right. So moving more to leadership, tell me about your sort of position or disposition, I guess. What should every person have? What should every person in your department have in terms of leadership skills? What do you look for in leaders?
Humility. I do not like working with people that are not humble. I feel like life is very humbling. I've been humbled. And when I sense that someone is kind of like either acting like they know more than they do because they're trying to impress people, I've had times where I've had people in my office that work for me, and I say, you don't need to know everything. That's not my expectation. I didn't hire someone who knew everything.
Yeah.
I hired someone who was a quality person, a person who's committed to learning and becoming better every day, no matter what point you are in your career, and someone who knows when to ask for help and when to say, I don't know. Because pretending in a business like this, or really any business, is not healthy, and it doesn't make you a reliable professional. So humility is number one for me.
Yeah, you mentioned that you've been humbled. Anything stand out in your mind that you learned from?
Well, my mentor's birthday was yesterday, and she was my longtime mentor. She was the president of the YMCA Foundation, Karen Gustafson. And I have a very feisty personality. I like to blame the Spanish, Italian, and Czechoslovakian blood running through my body.
It's a lot happening.
It's a lot. But I definitely got feisty a few times, and she pulled me in and she said, you know what, Jennifer, you're really, really good, but you're not good enough not to be nice. And it really stuck with me. And I learned from that. I was humbled by that. And I have shared that with others who have worked for me too, because I think I have a bunch of superstars around me.
Yeah.
And sometimes superstars can also, get a little feisty.
You are one of the nicest people I've ever met. That's surprising to me. Maybe because we haven't worked together.
Well, I feel like, how Southwest Airlines, their philosophy is to lead with love. I feel like I lead with love. But I'm a pretty tough cookie, and there's that. But then there's another thing when you kind of go further than you should and know when, you know when to say I went too far. And so you hope that happens very rarely, and that has been the case for me. But when it does happen, I really feel disappointed in myself, and I take it to heart, and I think about what Karen said. And when I wrote her birthday note yesterday, I said, I'm better because of you. I'm better for having known you, and especially on her birthday.
Wow, that's awesome. And it's interesting too to lead with love. And I think this person's a mutual friend of ours, and previous guest on From the Corner Office, Heather Caston, the amazing CEO of the Greater Sarasota Chamber of Commerce. And Heather is a lot of people know Heather as she'll even say this, right? Susie Sunshine, right? She's the CEO of the chamber and an amazingly wonderful, nice person. But she has often said, don't confuse my kindness for weakness, right? She still leads a 12 or 14 person team, and that requires that effort.
100%. And I admire her.
Yes.
A lot. I've known her long before she was at the Sarasota Chamber, when she was at Lake Range Business Alliance. When I had my business, I was involved with them. I have a great deal of respect for her. She has a very tough job, because the thing about being the CEO of a chamber is that you have so many different people that have interests that you have to take into consideration with decision. And she does do it with grace. But I've definitely had her back on a few things, and she's had my back on a few years, and I really have a great admiration for her.
When you talk, going back to your team, you have superstars, and it's high pressure, and they have to get their stuff out so the media can do their job. How do you handle conflict when it arises within the organization, within your team or the organization?
Communication. I feel like communication is the key to everything in life. It's certainly the key to personal relationships, and it doesn't change when you walk into the warehouse at Camden Yards. Talking through issues right away, not letting things fester. I hate when I find things out later, like something was bothering me and blah, blah. And I'm like, why didn't you come talk to me about it? I'm a very approachable person. And because I'm available so much, I feel like I want people to realize that addressing things and sometimes having uncomfortable conversations is a lot better than just letting things. And sometimes things live in our head too. We've all been there, where we make it worse than it is. And I read a lot of philosophical books and things talking about that, because it can be a dangerous thing.
Yeah, the voice that goes on in our head. And one of the questions I sometimes ask is, how do you handle imposter syndrome, right? And that is that voice that's saying you're not good enough. We talked about that earlier, but does that come up with you? And how do you handle that when, man, I'm not good enough, but you know that you are?
Mark, I will say, how many baseball games did I watch before joining the Baltimore Orioles as senior vice president? Not very many. So I would say I was the number one imposter when I walked into the door, but I felt like what I could contribute had less to do with baseball and more to do with, commitment to excellence, to being transparent, to being someone that people can rely on, someone people can trust. And what I have evolved into is someone who has provided guidance and helps people navigate really complex problems and situations to avoid trouble. And doing that with an ethical approach, that's what I realized was more important than how many baseball games I'd watched. I've been a football fan my entire life. I won the fantasy football here at the Orioles in my department last year. I'm trying to win again this year. Baseball was not my thing growing up, but I actually love baseball now. I find it to be fascinating and relaxing. But football was my first love.
And you won your fantasy. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Tackle Me Elmo. That was the team. And
Tackle
Elmo
Me
was hoping to
Elmo.
prevail yet again.
Love it.
Voice. How could I not have Tackle Me Elmo?
Yes. Very, that's great. No, baseball, I am a big, I've talked about, I'm a big baseball fan. There's no clock, and I love that there's no clock, but that could be disarming to some, that not everybody loves it.
Yeah, I have to say, so with the pitch clock that we have, we save about 20, 30 minutes. And when you can get 20, 30 minutes of your life back, it's a really great thing. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with automatic ball strikes, the ABS system, and how that evolves.
Yeah.
Baseball, the thing that's so interesting about baseball is that, it's a one-man sport and a team sport, and you have to be committed to both things. I play tennis. I'm mostly a singles player. I like playing singles. I kind of like it to be all in my hands. All you see is the person on the other end of the court. In fact, a friend of ours that we share, I think, Jackie Dzelski, I've played with her. I have to stand on the court just to return her serve.
Jackie's very good, I hear.
She's very good, and I'm nowhere near on the level. But sometimes in a social tennis, you get in that situation. I'm like, how will I do this? But you just try to make her laugh, and maybe she gets distracted, and that's the answer. But yeah, I think there's a lot about baseball that's interesting because our players, they have to sometimes make sacrifices for the greater good, and you see it in the play itself. The sacrifice fly. What is that? That's helping someone advance a runner where it might cost you the ability to have a big play, or, a home run or what have you.
Yeah. Excellent. And one more leadership question. What's the best standout leadership advice you've received in your career?
Standout leadership advice. I've said this before, and I remember this from my 40 and under 40 is to always stand up on principle. I was a Rotarian for about 14 years, and the thing I loved about Rotary was the 4-way test. And one of the tenets is it fair to all concerned? And that's a lens at which I look at many things. And even when we're developing media policies, Mark, more than anybody, the media landscape has changed so much with podcasts and all these. There's only so many people that can get credentialed. And when people bring me something like, "Can we approve this?" I say, "Is it fair? Is it fair to everyone?" And so I feel like that's a very important quality.
Yeah, no, that's right. You're right. It's changing all the time. Super important to be in front of that and on top of that. Excellent. Well, Jennifer, as we're getting into almost the holiday season, baseball's obviously off, but one question we ask at the end here is, what are you looking forward to for next year? So what are we looking forward to for the Baltimore Orioles for next year?
My. The only thing that we have at the Orioles right now, I thought we were already through all the change. We are heading into a whole year of change. We have a new manager who I just met about a week ago. I worked with him when we first announced everything. New manager, mostly new coaching staff, not entirely new, but many new faces will be joining the organization and others going to new organizations. We have our player development complex that's opening in Sarasota. You are going to receive an invite to that.
Excellent.
February. It is unbelievable. I toured it last week. It's kind of big, I will say, but about $23 million that we put into that facility. And then at Camden Yards, we're making a ton of renovations here. We're launching a premium club. There's so many ballparks that have that available for fans. We've never had it. New social bar, club level. And the organization will hopefully be in a little bit more of a stable place with all the business changes because Riggs, our new team president of the business operation, she's working side by side with Mike Elias. She has installed a full transition of leadership. I'm still involved with the team. There are many that are not. Hopefully we'll be a little stable and be able to not use the excuse of we're all new here. Because it's a lot of work, and it's better to have some continuity.
I feel like the pun, there's a lot of balls in the air, needs to be said.
Yes. Yeah, I would always say, like, it would be fun for people to work in baseball for like a week, and then they would say, perhaps I should work in football. That's what I say to my counterpart at the Ravens. When I retire, I'm going to go cross the line over there.
He's like, wait a second. Excellent. Well, this was great. We learned a lot. Jennifer Grondahl, Senior Vice President of the Baltimore Orioles. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.